I got involved with a girl, got serious, and wanted to move forward and set a life together, so I joined the military.
Why did you pick the service branch you joined?
My grandfather is a big hero in the Navy, which was my first choice, and I couldn't live up to his name, so I didn't do it. And the next choice was the Marines, and I just heard too many horror stories, and the next choice was the Army.
Do you recall your first days in service?
Very vividly. I got to Fort Jackson at about 2 in the morning and went through reception, and the first people I met, they're called drill corporals, which are just corporals that didn't make sergeant or whatever, so they went through a little course to help get us ready for basic training. And I went there with 3 people from Hartford. We were the only 4 in Connecticut in that unit that we went to. We stepped out of our physical, got our shots, and immediately got told to do push-ups until we passed out. We finally got to sleep at around 6 a.m. Had to wake up at 7 and go to chow, do PT, and then it was just hurry up and wait for 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks, we get put on a cattle truck, and no windows, nothing, just complete darkness. And we finally stop, the doors open, and just mile a minute, get your shit, and let's go. Get our stuff, bring them down, didn't do it fast enough, do push-ups. Get done doing push-ups, you didn't do them fast enough, do sit-ups. And it was just physical torture for 3 straight days. And then after that, it calmed down a little bit. We were still, doing push-ups and sit-ups every hour. But it got more into the training aspect. We finally got our rifles, we learned how to shoot. Ruck marches, obstacle courses, confidence courses, survival training, land navigation. And then right before we were going to graduate, we had what was supposed to be a 14-mile road march from camp back to where we were, and we took a wrong turn and ended up being 37 miles. We were supposed to get back at 11 o'clock at night. We got back at 7 o'clock the next day in the night, and they let us sleep for a day and a half. And woke up, graduated, and went to Fort Lee, Virginia.
What were your feelings at that time?
Pride, a lot of pride. My family came down and saw me graduate, and I've always been the type of person that wanted to make my family proud of me, but I never got that. I played a lot of sports and everything, but once I graduated, my grandfather, who is the hardest man I know, gave me a big hug and said he was proud of me, and that was enough to let me know what I was doing was right.
Can you tell me about your boot camp and training experiences?
God, which ones do you want? When I went in, I was an all-star athlete. There was nothing I couldn't do. And they just would always put something in front of us that I got challenged from the other people by. Whether it was running a mile in this time, or, climbing a wall this fast, or doing it with no help. And it really brought forth the teamwork aspect of it, because, I started realizing that I couldn't do everything on my own. So I remember we went to one course, it's called the teamwork training course, and all that they gave us was 2 ropes that were slung to poles, essentially, with little platforms on both ends. And the ropes were 7 feet between the 2, so you couldn't grab one and put your foot on the other and shimmy across. You had to find a way across. And that's when everything opened up of, I need some help, So I would grab the top rope, and then I'd shimmy across the top rope while somebody was grabbing onto me and walking below me on the other rope. And I had to do that 8 times for the rest of the people in my squad. And that's probably the most vivid memory I have of opening up to the Army aspect. Another time, the final road march that I was explaining, we had, I can't remember her name, but we had a female with us. She broke her ankle on the 2nd mile, and finished the whole 37 with a broken ankle. You know, it's just the toughness that you see when somebody's put through all that really opens your eyes, you know. So lots of experiences, lots of it was just getting beat down, but it was all, wouldn't change it. It was great.
Do you remember any of your instructors?
I remember all of them. Drill Sergeant Morales, Drill Sergeant Wilson, and Drill Sergeant Baker was basic training. Drill Sergeant Morales was actually stationed on Fort Drum, which is where I already knew I was going. And he was, you know, explaining everything to me, and come to find out, or come to end up, he ended up being really good friends with my family once he met them. Spoke Italian to him, and, you know, really got along with them, and he ended up going back to Fort Drum when I got to Fort Drum. So I ran into my drill sergeant, which is like having a heart attack. You hear the voice and you're just like, oh my god, what's going on? And you start doing push-ups without him even saying it. I swear to God, it was the weirdest thing in the world. I'm standing in line at the store, and he comes up behind me and goes, Torcasio! And I hit the ground and started doing push-ups. True story. Drill Sergeant Wilson, I found out, ended up dying a few years later of a heart attack. And Drill Sergeant Baker, we didn't really get to know that well. He was on his way out, and he only helped us out for like 2 or 3 weeks. Then I went to my second phase AIT, where we still had drill sergeants, and that was Drill Sergeant Hardy, who we didn't really see him much. We had classes so much, so I didn't really get to know him that well. But that's who it was pretty much.
How'd you get through those times of basic training and boot camp?
I don't know. I really don't know. It was a lot of verbal abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse. But, you know, you get your phone call once a week, you get your letters, and sometimes that's all that it took. You know, a phone call from my girlfriend at the time, a letter from my aunt, you know, we're proud of you, we can't wait to see you. And it was enough to say, I'm not going to let anybody prove that I didn't do this right. So, you know, I just sucked it up and drove on.
How do you feel, or how did you feel when you found out that you were going to Iraq and Afghanistan?
Probably the single scariest moment of my life. On September 11th, I was receiving dental care because I lost my 2 front teeth in the field. I had them knocked out by a helmet. And I'm sitting in the dental chair, and I'm gassed up, and I'm thinking everything's a hazy dream. And I had a colonel working on me, and his nurse comes in and says, Colonel, you gotta come look at this. You know? And he walks out, comes back in, I don't know how much later. You know, private, you gotta get home. You gotta get to your unit, you don't have a choice. So, you know, alright, take my stuff off, get ready, let the drugs wear off a little bit, and I walked into the reception room just in time to see the second plane hit the towers. That's when I knew. Instead of waiting for a ride or calling a taxi, I just ran. I think it was a good 3-4 miles, just ran. Got to my unit, went to my first sergeant, and said, when do I need to go? Pack me up. You're not going, we don't need you right now. You know, but keep your bags packed. And a couple months later, we get the call, and the first thing I did was take time off and come home and just gave everybody a hug. And said, you know, I love you. Regardless of what happens to me, you know, just know that I'm doing this for you guys. And said my goodbyes, and the rest of the time, I think it was another 48 hours before I left, is just a haze of fear, uncertainty. But the second I got on the plane, it all went away. And it was, you know, back to business, balls to the wall, let's get this done and get home.
What were your emotions and feelings at that time?
Fear. You know, as long as you're always afraid, the way that I always thought, if you're always afraid, you're always ready. You know, if you're going into something and you're not afraid of it, then something bad is going to happen. So I kept the fear in, never showed it, but everything I did was motivated by the fear.
Where exactly did you go?
First place I went was, we flew out of Fort Drum, New York, and in our 28-hour flight, we stopped in Hamburg, Germany to refuel. Spent a couple hours there, then flew into Bagram, Afghanistan. Spent 2 days there. I was the first on the ground for my unit. Very first. Nobody else was there, so I was the man, the one in charge, had to set everything up. And that was another scary moment for me, because I'd only been in the military for a little over a year, and everything was put on me at that time. From Bagram, we went down to Kabul, which is Camp Phoenix, and stayed there till we left. My main job was to train the Afghan National Army. They were located at KMTC, Kabul Military Training Compound, which was about 2 clicks exactly down the road from where we were. And I was in charge of 2 warehouses in Polisharki, which is a small town next to Kabul. We had 2 warehouses, and you can look out and see nothing for miles. You know, you're in the field at that point. You never thought that you'd do it, but you're in the field. You're not showering for 3 or 4 days. You never know what that light is that's coming up, if it's one of your guys, if it's one of theirs. The bugs are just destructive. Mosquitoes that will carry you away. And then when you do hear shots, it's terrifying. Although most of the time they're not near you. You know, just one shot. Who was that? Where'd it go? After Kabul, I went back to Fort Drum, and I was there until 2004. 2004, we went to Baghdad, Iraq, Camp Victory, where almost all my time was spent on compound. I went on a couple missions, you know, search and seizure missions, just patrolling the area, bringing supplies. And then the bases that we would go to from Camp Victory were Camp Justice, Camp St. Michael, St. John's, Fallujah Air Force Base, yeah, but mostly Baghdad.
What were your expectations before you got there?
Before I got to combat?
Yes.
I didn't really have any. I thought it was just going to be a desert. You know, we were going to go out there and it was just going to be a bunch of sand, and it's going to suck. Nobody's going to want to be here. People are going to die. You know, nothing about it was pleasant, but it was a job. So we went about it, and you could see how much everybody's mood changed the second that they touched ground and they saw what we were dealing with. It wasn't anything comparative, because we're expecting desert, we're expecting there's the enemy, shoot the enemy, go home. Instead it turned into, we're in the middle of a city, there's 1,000 civilians all over the place, and one of them wants to kill you. So now you have to find out. It completely changed everybody's mentality.
Do you remember arriving and what it was like?
Yeah. When I arrived into Afghanistan, it was weird, because at that point, you know, the last conflict that we really had was Bosnia and Kosovo, which, I mean, they were conflicts, but they weren't war. You know, there wasn't many shots fired. It was pretty much just keeping the peace. And when you got to Afghanistan, and people started to think like these fucking people are, you know, excuse my language, these people are here to kill us. I had a lieutenant that wasn't even with our unit. He just ended up going with me, and I stepped out of my hooch to smoke a cigarette with him and do patrol around the tents because we didn't have the outside perimeter yet. And he just smacks the cigarette out of my hand and says, "What do you think you're doing?" "Smoking a cigarette, sir. It's kind of obvious." And he says, "You know that a sniper can see that cherry from 3 miles away?" And that was like an eye-opener, like, this is real, you know? So from that moment on, you learn little tricks and nuances of how to get away with stuff that they won't see. And that's what Afghanistan ended up being, was kind of a game where you see how much you can get away with until something happens.
What was your actual job and your assignments?
I was a 92 Alpha, which is an automated logistical specialist. When I was in the rear at Fort Drum, I was working in a warehouse, supplies, car parts, gun parts, oil, gas, food, you know, whatever we needed out in the field. Once I arrived in Afghanistan, I immediately received my mission that I would be training the Afghan National Army on how to outfit their soldiers and keep their supplies going. I was attached to 1/3 SF Slice, which is Special Forces. They were in charge of KMTC along with the 45th NP, I believe. I might have the number wrong, but the NP unit out of Massachusetts. And for 6 months, I just went in there, learned Dari, you know, taught them how to do their job, instilled a disciplinary system, and, you know, pretty much played politician for 6 months with these people. When I arrived in Iraq, I found out that our mission was going to be the same as our mission in the rear, in addition to patrolling the streets and getting supplies out and guarding the ammunition, guarding the gate, watching the locals while they worked on base, doing sweeps. And then at the very end of it, we had to switch missions because another unit was coming in to take over for us. So we went from being a warehouse to a patrol. For I think it was 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, we were just out every day, and that's when real stuff started happening.
Did you see combat?
Yes. When I was in Afghanistan, we were going from Camp Phoenix to KMTC, and we get static over a radio. You know, there's a sniper out there, be careful, nobody knows where he's at, nobody knows what he looks like, we just know that he's out there. So we go about our everyday mission. We take our BANA, which is the battalion of Afghan National Army, and we take them out to the Hindu Kush Mountains, and we just teach them training techniques and team formations and how to be, and all of a sudden you hear a shot just out of nowhere.
Hey, how's your dad?
And one of our guys falls, the Afghan guys fall. We're looking around like, you know, trying to figure out what's going on, and another one goes down, another one rings out. And at this point, you know, I'm with a bunch of SF guys, I'm just a quartermaster at this point, and it just, for me it was panic. And it's the first thing that came to my mind is I gotta get the fuck out of here. I don't know what I'm doing. These guys are ready to kill this guy and I don't want to take another step. And after the initial rush of I don't want to do this, everything else kicked in. My training kicked in and it said, you know, you might be scared, but you've got backup. You're not going alone. So we chased him down, never found him. But, you know, having shots fired and hitting, I mean, literally 15 feet from you, and seeing people go down because of those shots was pretty terrifying. Then, when I was in Afghanistan, or Iraq, we were in the warehouse, which is the middle of the base. No way that they can get to us except for missiles and bombs or, you know, whatever else, which they really aren't that accurate with. And, you know, we're all just goofing around and BSing, and nobody's really taking anything serious, and then all of a sudden you heard the chirp, which is when a mortar drops, because they don't whistle, they chirp. And you hear the chirp, and it sounded close, but nobody put two and two together, and all of a sudden we're standing in a big circle, and about 15 feet behind us a mortar hits, blows everything to hell. And we all just threw on our stuff and jumped underneath the Jersey barriers, no clue what the hell was happening. And we found out that our commissary got hit, and I think 9 people actually got shrapnel blast and burns, and one of my buddies, Sergeant Brady Cloward, he was a commo specialist. He runs over there without missing a beat and patches everybody up, and it ended up being not a great day, but at least a good enough day where nobody died. The first explosion is the one that's gonna wake you up and let you know that you can't get lazy out here. A couple weeks after that, we're doing a patrol, and the Humvee's driving, we're walking beside it, and an RPG came out of nowhere. I think it was an RPG, because I couldn't really tell. You can't really see it till it hits. And we heard the explosion, and Humvee went up, tire flew off, and swept both of my legs out, and took my legs out, and then caused a little brain damage from the explosion.
How long was your deployment?
Afghanistan was 8 months, and Iraq was 14.
Being in the supply company, that's what you were in, right? How it came with the added risks of them wanting to go after the supplies. How did you deal with this, and what were the risks to you and the other men in your unit?
It's weird. You hear going over there, if you have this job, you have this life expectancy. If you have this job, you have this life expectancy. Supply had 24 seconds on ground. You're gonna survive 24 seconds, and they're probably gonna shoot at you, and they're probably gonna hit. That's the first thing they tell you, and they're not lying. I hit the ground. I got in my first supply truck, went on a convoy, and guns started firing, and the only thing that they were shooting for was the fuel truck. Because if you take out the fuel truck, everything's gone. My buddy was in the fuel truck that got hit by the RPG, and he had his rucksack behind him, and when it blew up, I guess that the rucksack caused a shield that kept the flames from hitting him. So he walked away untouched. Not a scar, not a scratch, not a burn, nothing. Completely walked away from it. And every single mission like that from then on was treated like that was going to happen. So you're on edge, you're jumpy, the smallest thing that comes at you, you're going to want to shoot it. You start second guessing yourself with kids and women at that point. But you kind of grow numb to it after a while, and it just gets second nature. Like coming home and driving. I came home for 2 weeks. I was so terrified of driving, I wouldn't drive. My best friend had to drive. I had to sit in the back. I had the window down. I had to look all over the place. People thought I was nuts, but that's the way it is over here.
I read an article that when you came home, you were looking for your weapon, and it was kind of like shocked that you didn't have it. And
you did research. Yeah.
What were your feelings when you came home?
Well, first off, on the way coming home, my plane got attacked by anti-aircraft, and we almost went down. So, going home didn't even start that well. It was a mess. We're almost dead twice. The engine gave out. The other engine gave out. Had to make 2 emergency landings. Finally, we get here. We're stuck in Atlanta, and I'm still with a bunch of military guys. So the deprogramming wasn't able to start. Because once you get home, you're supposed to deprogram for a little bit and just be human. And it just wasn't able to happen. We had a bunch of guys around us. Everything was this. A hurricane hit, so I wasn't allowed to go home yet. Finally, when I got home, I didn't even get 2 steps into the door, and I wanted to walk out and go back. It didn't feel right. My rifle wasn't with me. I didn't feel safe. Even though these were kids that I grew up with, my best friends, I didn't want to be around them. It was just constantly I was looking for something, any reason to get out and go back. Because it's what I knew. I was afraid of hurting people. I was afraid of hurting myself. But with the support group that I had, it ended up being the trip that I needed. And then I deprogrammed a little bit the last few days and started not looking around for stuff and just being normal. Flew back and it all started again. Just right away, just instant, smack me in the face, you're back in Iraq, get your game on. And that's what we did.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
No, my unit had 0 casualties. It's actually something that I'm very proud of because I was a sergeant at the time, which means I was in charge of 6 people. And in combat, we gave out, I believe, 4 Purple Hearts, but nobody in my unit died. Friends that were in my unit that went to another unit did. Staff Sergeant Parsons, who, if I remember correctly, got sniped. A friend of mine, Boyer, he ended up getting hit with an IED. Hold on a second. Go ahead, Sue.
I'm gonna sneak out too.
Go ahead.
You guys are- I'm sorry, ladies.
That's okay.
I just had to put dinner in.
It's not
in that
good.
house today. Most of my friends that I've lost over there actually died afterwards. We had a staff sergeant who I was very close to, Gary Holland. And he was everybody's best friend. Never would hurt a fly. And he died of lung cancer because of the stuff he was doing over there, plus cigarettes and whatever. Another friend died of Crohn's disease, my buddy, Specialist Wood. And then I had another friend, Specialist Earl Champ, who was a medic for us. And probably the best medic I've ever seen in my life. He just knew what he was doing. You felt safe when he was working on it. And he went home for leave. He's home for 2-3 days. Takes a step out his front door and gets caught in a gun down. So, and that's when he was on leave from Iraq. He was getting ready to go back to Iraq shortly after. So, I mean, those are the 5 people that our unit lost, but only 2 of them were in combat.
Can you tell me a couple of your most memorable experiences?
Yeah, these are tough. I was on gate guard one day, sergeant of the guard, and a little kid comes running up, about a click out, 1,000 meters. And one of my specialists comes up to me, he's like, Sergeant T, got somebody approaching the gate. So keep them back, fire a warning shot, do what you gotta do, they're not allowed to come here. He says, it's a kid. Alright, what am I gonna do? There's a kid. Alright. I'm like, fire warning shot, scare him off. I'm like, just get rid of him. Don't do anything to him. Just try and scare him. And they're taking pop shots, and this kid is just running at us. I mean, no fear in the world. And somebody looks at me and says he's got something in his hand, and it looks big enough to be a grenade. So, but I can't tell what it is. At this point, the heart's racing, you get scared as hell, and you call it, take the shot, take them out. You don't have a choice. Somebody took the shot, took the little kid out, we look at the body, and he's holding a candy bar. And you realize that 9 times out of 10 it'll be a candy bar, but you can't risk that one time. So, you know, we did what we had to do, and you know, cried about it for a while, and just drove on. Another time, we were coming back from Bagram, took a bull to make a supply run, and we turned down the road to go to our base. And if you go left on the road, you go to our base, the German base, KMTC and Polisharki. If you go right, you go to, it's called Chikmotiv, which is another town that way, and KIA, the Kabul International Airport. And we're driving past, and German bus is driving past, and there's about 80, 90 German soldiers in there. And they're waving to us, and they're happy, and they're going home. So, you know, it kind of gave us a little motivation of, you know, if they can go home, we're going home. You know, nothing's going to stop us from going home. What's, you know, 15 seconds after we passed them, you hear 2 big explosions. I mean, shook the world. Boom, boom. Stop the Humvees, give a call in, you know, we got 2 explosions, what's going on? And they say, turn around, you gotta go and set up a perimeter. You know, for this, what just happened. What happened? Just go set up a perimeter, you'll find 2 buses. We turn around, we found the 2 buses, and we set up a perimeter. And being the lowest ranking, I would normally be the one to stand on the perimeter. But because I was with SF, I was more valuable to them searching and seeing if I could find survivors or some way of figuring out what just happened. And I'm searching through, and I thought I saw somebody, you know, a face blinking. So I run over there and I start moving stuff, and I realize there's no body. The head is just blinking. Because I guess when you sever the cord, nerves are still running in their body. They blink until it's finally gone. I just picked it up and I looked at it, and I just lost it. One second.
Where's Crazy Mikey today?
Not here.
Not here?
Yeah.
Alright, come on, I was looking for him.
Alright. Those are probably the 2 biggest ones I have as far as the craziness. I mean, another story which is much lighter, thank God. We're driving and we're at the gate of Bagram, the base in Bagram, I can't remember its name. And people are just running back and forth, you know, looking at the Americans. You know, it's the Americans, they're here, whatever. And you see our 50 cal gunner in the truck above us just spinning, and it's spinning to the point where you can start timing where he's gonna be. And I guess some of the locals noticed it. So they're sitting there and they're just, you can see them counting, and they're swaying back and forth and back and forth, and all of a sudden he starts to go this way, and they take off for the Humvee. Run right to the Humvee. Open up the door, grab 4 or 5 bottles of water, and run off. And normally we didn't care. We would just toss out water and food and candy because, you know, you want to be liked by them. But for some reason, my friend was just in a bad, bad mood. And saw him reach down, and he comes up with a bottle of something. And I can only assume what it was, but I don't know. All I know is it was yellow. So he takes the bottle, and he hucks it at this person that just stole the water. Hits him in the back of the head, explodes all over the damn place. Yeah, we used to do some really mean stuff. And we got on base, and it was just like complete disbelief that he just hit this guy with what we assume is a piss bottle. And just for laughs, like that's all we did it for. There was no other reason than to laugh, you know. And the people didn't take it bad, you know. They understood, and then, you know, we didn't get any retaliation for doing anything like that. But you know, it was probably one of the highlights of my life. So those are the 3 that really jump out in my mind.
How were your relationships with the other people you were stationed with?
A brotherhood, a real brotherhood. We called ourselves Deuce Block, me and my squad, because our first sergeant said that we're a bunch of delinquents that deserve to be in prison. We drank together, we fought together, we did everything together. Even to this day, we all keep in touch. We're brothers. One of them is in Kuwait working for the government. Two of them are in Watertown, New York, next to Fort Drum, working for the government. My buddy Wood passed away. And me, who tried hard to get back in but couldn't. And we talk, God, almost every day. I mean, just, even if it's something stupid that happened, Hey, the sun came up today, And, without them, we'd all probably lose each other's minds, we can't really talk to somebody and expect them to understand it, except for them. And, anything that they need, I got their back. Anything I need, they got my back. And it's just, that's the way it's been for, 10 years now.
Were you awarded any medals?
Yeah, I received 2 Army Commendation Medals. The Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary, Global War on Terrorism Stationary, the War on Iraq, Good Conduct Medal. I should have received a, I can't even remember, CAB, Combat Action Badge, but I got out just before our unit was able to issue them out, so I'm not sure if I have it or not. And the rest were all commendations, just pieces of paper, good job, stuff like that.
How did you get them?
I received my first ARCOM in Afghanistan. Myself, Specialist McGee, and another specialist, Todd Hahn, were put in for Bronze Stars, and a bunch of politics happened. We were the 3 that trained the whole Afghan army in their supply field, how to do everything. And anybody who was linked to that job received a Bronze Star. But because none of us were sergeants, they had to knock it down to ARCOMs. In Iraq, I was the one that, I had to talk to the general about the supplies, have to give my reports, pretty much like the go-to guy for anything supply on the base. And once again, I got put in for a Bronze Star because of politics, got knocked down to an ARCOM.
Do you have any regrets about your time over there?
Some. I don't think I did as much as I could have. I saw my share of combat, but, I got friends that saw so much more than I did, and they're going through so much mentally now that you kind of feel that you didn't do your part, You don't want to talk about how many bodies you have or how many shots you fired or anything like that, but I didn't do enough, and that's the only regret that I had.
Is there anything you would have done differently now, looking back?
Yeah, I would have taken better care of myself. Instead of just throwing caution to the wind and, putting my body on the line, I would have thought a little bit smarter about some of the things I did, so that now I wouldn't be as injured as I am.
What are your thoughts about the natives?
Some of them were phenomenal. I had an interpreter named Lutfula while I was in Afghanistan who, this guy pretty much worshipped the ground that I walked on. Anything I needed, he got me. Every morning I'd come into work, I'd have a pack of cigarettes, a 6-pack of soda. Everything just waiting right there for me. And the people in Afghanistan genuinely wanted us there. They wanted us to fix their country, fix their schools, fix their housing, and help them out, which we always did. You know, it wasn't like we had any issues against them. The Iraqis were a little different. They were nice to us, but they'll stab you in the back the second they get the chance. You can't really trust any of them. I mean, that's including women, children, old people, anybody. It's just their way of thinking. And you never held it against them, but you always knew to be cautious. My Rugrat's here. My brother's here.
You can pause it.
Yeah. Come here, sweetie.
All right. Did you learn the native language there?
I learned some Dari, some Pashto, which is the native languages of Afghanistan. And I learned enough Arabic to get my point across for Iraq. But, you know, most of languages you don't really need to know most of. You know, you just need to get down on the ground, here's some candy, go away. That's essentially all you need to know over there. So,
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Afghanistan, it was 4 weeks until I got in touch with my family at all, and that was after they helicoptered in a phone bank that we could use hooked up to a satellite. But they were so independable. The second that any explosion happened, a shot was fired, anything, shut the phones down, shut the internet down. We received the internet about 3 months in Afghanistan, and for Iraq, we had phones and internet the whole time. So, you know, you could call and do whatever you had to do.
How did your family and friends feel about you going?
Crystal, you want to answer this question?
What? What?
How did my friends and family feel about me going
Where's the army?
to Iraq, Afghanistan?
Scared.
I didn't really talk to them about it. I mean, only they.
How do you think they felt?
Half of them were scared, and half of them thought that I was stupid.
How do you feel like they dealt with that? With you going?
I think they just blocked it out of their mind. And truthfully, they didn't think about it. Because if they thought about it, then, you know, it just would have caused it. So the only time to think about it is when they're talking to me.
Did you stay in touch with them?
Oh yeah. I mean, not as much as I would have liked to, but for circumstances, yeah, I kept in about as good touch as I can.
What were the things you missed most about home?
Gummy bears. You laugh. My aunt used to send me 5-pound bags at a time because I missed them that bad, and they were gone in a couple hours.
That's awesome.
And that's really it. We had everything else. I missed the bar. You know, not even to drink, just to go. TV, like actual TV shows instead of having to watch what we're forced to watch or movies. My car. That was probably the only other thing I missed.
What was the food like there?
Afghanistan, it was great until you realized how they made it. Being in charge of supply, you get to go behind scenes and get to see stuff that other people don't get to. And for 2 or 3 months, we'd been eating with the Afghan army, you know, every lunch, you know, and it'd be a big plate of rice, and a piece of chicken on top, and like a goat meatball, and some bean sauce or whatever. And you eat it, it's fantastic. And then finally, the cook comes out, and he knows who I am, and invites me into the back to, you know, see him cook, which I guess is a huge deal for them. And you go in back, and you realize all that they have is this one big pot. It's about this big around and tall as hell, and they're boiling chickens in it. You're like, all right, they're boiling chickens, no big deal, whatever. And next thing you know, they kick the pot over, and all the water runs out, and the chicken hits the ground. They're just picking it up with bare hands and hacking it apart. And that doesn't bother you until you realize that they're taking the same pot that they just cooked this chicken in, filling it up with rice and cooking the rice in it. And they're scooping the rice out with hands and just throwing it on the plate. Until you see it happen, the food is fine. The second you see it, your stomach starts to hurt and you never want to eat there again.
Did you ever get sick?
No. Never got sick. In Iraq, the food is the same stuff you can get here at a kebab house. The weirdest thing that I couldn't eat it, but that I got really sick in Iraq because of it actually. They would take fish and just take the whole fish right out of the water and just throw it on a grill and just grill it. Everything in it, and they'd eat everything. But it got to the point, and we had no clue, they didn't even know. The fish that we were getting, it was out of Z Lake, which is right in the middle of our camp, which you wouldn't think in the middle of a desert. And, you know, they catch these fish by the hundreds, whatever, and cook them up for us. Well, come to find out, the fish were polluted. So, I mean, we got hit bad. Yeah, I was on the shelf for a good couple of days, not able to move. Yeah.
Did you have plenty of supplies while over there?
Of course, I was in charge of it.
Did you feel pressure or stress?
Oh yeah, yeah. You feel it every day. I mean, if you fail at even one mission, you're potentially costing somebody a life. I mean, it's something. The smallest thing in the world can lead to major problems. If you don't have enough batteries, now you can't see at night. You know, if you don't have enough ammo, you can't shoot. You know, you don't have enough food, you're not lasting long enough. So the pressure was, God, unlike anything I could imagine. You know, especially a supply, because if you screw up a supply, you screw up big, and there's no way out of it.
Any particular experience that you can
Oh,
think
no,
of?
no. I never screwed up. That's one thing I can safely say. I mean, any mistakes that I made, I was able to not cover up, but fix right away. It was just because I had so much experience and new ways to manipulate the system, I guess, which is the best way to say it. You know, if something went missing, and they had a record of it, you make the record disappear. Stuff like that. But nothing that ever would have costed a life. Except for my own. But that's because I'm an asshole.
Was there something special you did for good luck?
There were a lot of things that you do special. Every night before I go to bed, I'd spray my girlfriend's perfume on my pillow. You know, just because that's the smell I'm used to, and if I'm hearing bombs, I at least want to enjoy the smell. Every time before I would go out of the base, I'd pick up some dirt and rub it in my hands and put my gloves on. Boots had to be tied a certain way. I always had to have my family's picture in my chest pocket. If it wasn't there, I wasn't going anywhere. My unit knew it. And every time I would go out, I'd write a letter to my family, and when I got home, I'd destroy it. Well, same thing, I just repeat the process every single time.
What were you writing in those letters?
Stuff they should know, secrets, stuff that they wouldn't find out unless I told them. You know, I grew up in a pretty messed up childhood that my brothers and sisters don't know the half of. So it was, you know, stuff that I felt that they needed to know if I wasn't able to tell them, because nobody else would.
You ripped up all of those?
Yeah.
How do people entertain themselves?
My group played basketball. I mean, that was our thing. We played basketball 12 hours a day. We were base champs, we were division champs, we were everything.
You gonna stay here with me for a little bit?
When we couldn't play basketball, we'd play football. When we couldn't play football, we'd play soccer. We had video games. We were allowed TVs in our rooms. Every way that you would entertain yourself here you'd entertain yourself over there, except more primitive. Here you'd go to a nightclub. There you'd go to, it's called MWR 10. Management Welfare Resource or something. I can't remember what it's called. But, you know, they have, some people brought their instruments from home and they'd start a band over there and play music for everybody at night. You know, you heard some really, really good bands that way too. That we'll never hear again. We had karaoke. Yeah,
Did you participate in that?
I was an all-state singer, of course I did. Yeah, just every normal way you normally would hear, except that you got to get ready to drop it all at the drop of a hat, you know. So, you know, we had our little nightclubs, but you just couldn't drink, you couldn't do drugs, you couldn't do anything that would take you away from the mission, and that was the only rule. And even then, you can get away with some of that stuff if you know people from other armies.
Were there any entertainers?
Yep, I saw, God, now I'm trying to remember their names. We saw Robin Williams, he came there. Toby Keith, the WWE. Who else did I see? There are a lot of people. John Elway, the Miller Lite Girls, back when they were big, great taste, more filling or whatever. Them. Who else was there? There were a lot of people there, and I just can't remember. A lot of senators, a lot of politicians. I mean, we must have met every politician at least 3-4 times. It was pathetic. Some comedians, I've never heard of them, but they came and saw us and made us laugh our ass off. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Most of when we got our entertainment time, the only big time that we had was when I was in Iraq and the Super Bowl. It was the Eagles against the Patriots. Yeah, somebody's a Patriots fan. And when they had it, they allowed everybody in Iraq 2 beers, which was big. I mean, to the point of everybody had to turn their guns in to get a beer. And I was in charge of the beer. So we had a good Super Bowl.
More than 2 beers.
Nope, I plead the 5th. This is on tape.
That's one of those questions you don't have to answer.
Yeah, I don't have to answer that one.
What did you do when you were on leave?
In Afghanistan, I received 4 days of R&R, and they sent me to Qatar, which is a really rich, really small country next to Saudi Arabia, and it was paradise. You'd stand looking out, you'd stand in the middle of the desert looking out, and it's nothing but ocean. I mean, completely surrounded by the ocean. Maseratis around you, Lamborghinis. I mean, these people are filthy rich. And they let you do it. You want to take a Maserati out? Go. Drive a Maserati, 150 miles an hour down the highway. It was great. In Iraq, I came home for 2 weeks. Came here and spent a week with my family. Just spending a week with them, essentially. Catching up, giving hugs. My grandparents came up from Florida to spend a week with me, which was the best thing ever, because they never, my family, my sisters, my brother, my dad, they all saw what happened to me after Afghanistan. My grandparents never got to. When I came home for leave and they were there, they finally saw, you know, what I'd been through. And it was a much better understanding from a mental standpoint with them than I'd had before. You know, but most of it was just going out shopping, spending my money.
Yeah.
I mean, picking up girls. You're just coming from war. The only thing you're thinking of is booze and women. That's it. That's the only thing that runs through any guy's mind who's coming back from the military. Take notes.
Alright, we're going to change the tape really quick.
Okay.
You got like 5 minutes on there, but that's fine.
Well, I have more questions, so might as well. I don't know how to.
It's probably an eject button.
Nope, do not push.
Oh, is that what it says? Oh.
What?
Oh, maybe it's rewinding it.
Oh, possible.
Oh, shit. Do not push. Okay, I don't know.
Good thing the cameraman knows what she's doing.
Shit, I don't know how to.
Let me see. Might want to call your aunt. Oh, hold on. Something here that says push.
There is?
Yeah.
I can't see.
Oh,
They showed me how to do it too. How awful is that? Hang on, let me just see. See, the tape's still in there, so maybe like, do you have to rewind it?
What's this thing flashing?
No tape means that it was open.
But now it's closed. Oh, it's recording.
It's recording ours. Alright. An article I read from November 2004 stated that the first place that you wanted to go when you came home was the mall. Why was this the first place that you chose?
Civilian clothes. I didn't have any with me. It was just military uniform. So I went home and stopped at the mall, bought a South Pole jacket in the middle of November, a basketball jersey, and pants and shoes. It's just, I didn't want to wear my uniform anymore.
Where did you travel while you were in the service?
While I was in, I started at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, then went to Fort Lee, Virginia. After Fort Lee, I went to Fort Drum, New York. Spent time at Fort Polk, Louisiana for a training exercise. Let's see, Afghanistan, Iraq, Germany, Italy, Hungary, Kyrgyzstan, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's got like no vowels in it.
Just park up there. 'Cause that car's going out. That's the girls that are in the house.
Where else did I go? Qatar, Kuwait, Egypt. I think that's it.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Oh, I can give you a million of them.
We have a fresh tape in.
You have an hour.
Well, there was the one that I told you about. There was another time we're doing a convoy, and the rules with convoys is vehicles that don't belong to the convoy cannot be near the convoy. They either have to be 50 yards ahead of you or 50 yards behind you. If they come closer, you scare them off with a few shots. If they don't get scared off, you take out the vehicle, because it might be a bomb. So we're driving, and I'm in the passenger seat of an S&P, which is the military tractor trailer, and my driver, Brown, he's just in one of those, I don't know if he was in a foul mood or just he didn't want to be here mood, or I'm not sure, but you can tell he was pissed off. And a vehicle comes up from behind the convoy next to the truck, and he sees it, and you just see the look on his face of, I'm taking this vehicle out, I don't care what I have to do it. So he slowly brings the wheel to the left and slams it to the right. And you see this taxi, and you see the driver, the look on his face was probably the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life when he realized what was about to happen. And it sent him into a minefield. He didn't hit a mine or anything, but the guy was afraid to get out of the truck
Can I go in there or no?
because of the mines. So we come back the next day, and he's still in the taxi, in the middle of the minefield.
I'm gonna interrupt you. I'm sorry. I just gotta grab the phone. Okay.
Okay.
I'll leave that.
Let's see, that was one.
Come back out.
Oh,
Sorry, dear. We gotta go that way, okay?
lost my train of
'Cause
thought.
he's busy.
I have ADD too. Funny stories.
Or pranks, or
Oh, our lieutenant in Iraq, we always joked that he was a spy, because he spent most of his life growing up in the Middle East, so he knew Arabic, knew the area. I mean, he actually knew the area. I mean, go down this street, not this street, because this street's going to take you, like, hold on, you've been here before. So one of the locals got him a car, an actual car, to drive around base, which we're not allowed to have.
Benny just went to the.
We had a big
go
forklift,
get the
50K
medicine.
forklift, lift up a ton. Or, yeah, about a ton. More than a ton. 50K. 25 tons. And he drove his car in one day, and he had to go with the commander somewhere, so he took off. We took the forklift and lifted the car up and put it on top of 4 train trailers. So it was about 40 feet up, and he couldn't find it for a week. Another time, our acting sergeant major, it was a first sergeant that was just taking over because our sergeant major had another mission somewhere. He really pissed us off. I mean, bad. I don't remember what he did. I don't know why he deserved it. But we went to the commissary and we bought, I think, $100 and something worth of toilet paper, and just TP'd his hooch all night. And he woke up the next morning, no clue where the hell he was. He's like, what happened? Started yelling at everybody. He couldn't even get mad because he had no clue who it was. What happened? I can't even remember that one. There was one that I used to tell everybody that I just can't remember now for some reason. Oh, we're out in the field. And this is back in the States, and we're doing sling load missions, which is hooking up stuff to the bottom of a helicopter so we could take it off. And we had a female lieutenant with us who always tried to be like one of the guys. I mean, it was sad, but it really was. She just couldn't keep up with it. She was hardcore. She was definitely one of the strongest and toughest females I ever met, but we're running miles in like 5 minutes. She can't keep up with us. So we're underneath the helicopter and we're hooking stuff up, and if you don't take the static discharge off, then you get about 10,000 volts sent through you real quick. It's not enough to kill you, but it'll send your ass back about 100 feet. So she's short and she's trying to get the static thing to do it so I can hook up the sling. And I'm like, just get down, just get down. And she hit the ground and I grabbed the thing and I hit it and tapped it, whatever. And she's like, what did you do? And she went to stand up and knocked herself out on the helicopter. Hit the helicopter, out cold. For pranks, oh man. Me and my best friend, Stoddard, we were roommates for 3 years, and then he got the room next to me, and we used to share bathrooms. And whenever either of us were taking a shower, you'd take the cup of cold water and you just throw it over the shower onto him. Everybody knows that one. One day I decided to do it to him, and it was my first sergeant. No clue. Just threw it on there. What the hell do you think you're doing? Oh, man. So.
That's funny. Did you get in trouble?
No, he just laughed at it. Like, he expected it. Literally, we were great soldiers. We did everything we were supposed to do. But the second that uniform came off, we were degenerates. It caused nothing but chaos, nothing but trouble, and he just expected it.
What did you think about your officers and fellow soldiers?
I got lucky. I probably had the best chain of command that I've been told by other people. The best chain of command in the military. We had First Sergeant Orlando Blocker, Captain Michael B. Layler, who later got replaced by Captain Anderson, who was still awesome. My lieutenants were Lieutenant Hagler for a little bit, and then Lieutenant Courtney. And they were awesome. I mean, they bled for our unit. They would do anything for us. Always stuck up for us. The morale was high. We'd always go on company trips whenever we weren't doing anything. They knew their shit. I mean, it's not like you had to explain to them what was going on like you have to with most officers and higher ups. They just knew, and you didn't have to explain yourself as far as why you're doing it. They were fair, but they were just. I mean, they'd come down on you if they needed to, but they tried not to. They were part of our crew. I mean, you don't really get that where your chain of command is equivalent to your enlisted, but we all, even though we showed the respect and called them sirs or sergeant or first sergeant or whatever the title was, they still treated us as equals. And I think that's why we always made it home safe.
Did you keep a personal diary at any time?
I tried, but it just became too depressing. You know, you're writing the stuff down, and you're going back and reading it. You know, a lot of stuff you just want to let go. So most of the diary stuff just got hucked in the garbage or burnt, or, you know, find some way to make it explode or something like that. Yeah, we throw it in with bombs that we were blowing up. Just, yeah.
What was a typical day like while in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Days, I worked 2 different shifts in Iraq. Days sucked. It was about 140 degrees in the shade. You gotta drink water constantly. You know, mosquitoes are no bullshit about that big. Yeah. You got spiders about that big crawling around, snakes. You wake up, you do PT, and you go to work. And you do whatever you're supposed to do for the next 12, 14 hours.
What is PT?
Physical training, running, push-ups, sit-ups, weightlifting, whatever they decide to do. Sometimes it was basketball, you know, sometimes sports, whatever they could do to keep us in shape. You can go do your job, you get, you know, your hour for chow, and then when you're done, you're done. You're done till the next day. So you go back to your hooch, you can go to the MWR tent, go to somebody else's room, play some video games, call home, hop on the internet, go to the commissary. Our biggest thing that we used to do, we'd go to the side shacks, which were locals who would set up shops inside the base with the approval of the government. And they'd sell video games and movies that are out in theaters now that we weren't able to see. Like I saw Matrix 3 before anybody in the US saw it because of that. You know, it's really it. You keep yourself out of trouble. And when you do get in trouble, you find a way to cover it up. And it's really what you spent your time doing when you weren't working. Night shift was a little different. Instead of having to be out in the sweltering heat, people who worked during the day only had to work like 10 hours. People at night had to work 14 to make up for the heat. You work through the night, you survive off energy drinks, and during the day you sleep. And that's it. I mean, you really don't have time to do anything else except for shower and maybe your laundry every now and then. You know, you get 1 day off a week at night, you get no days off for daytime. And you find ways to, like for my crew, we like to play basketball, and you played basketball when the sun was going down, not when it was up. So, and I was working during that time, because that was my shift. So, you know, you set up a plan with your superior and, you know, look, let me come an hour late and I'll stay an hour early just so I can play some basketball, be PT. And they'll let you go with it. But night times it was just work, sleep, sleep. That's it.
How do you feel the war has changed you as an individual?
I look at things a lot different. You know, no matter where I go, I look for the escape routes and, you know, best place to hide in case something happens, and what can be used as a weapon if I need it, or when you're driving down the road and you go under an underpass, is there somebody on top lobbing grenades, you know, waiting for me to come? But you hold everything else up in a bigger regard. You start, I take a lot more pleasure in other things that I do. When I go out with my friends, I enjoy it more. You know, I don't just go just to go now. I go and enjoy myself, just let it all go, because life is too short at this point, you know, and that's what I learned over there. Of just, you gotta enjoy yourself. If you don't enjoy yourself, it's pointless.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yeah, saddest day of my life. I got told that I was unfit for duty. My body just couldn't take it anymore. And I had to take the walk of shame down the hospital doors and walked out. And went to my old unit because I got assigned to a medical unit after that because of the injuries.
What injuries did you have?
I had 2 knee constructions. One was after a football tournament where I completely blew everything out for the military. And the second one was when the tires hit me with the Humvee. Completely just blew my knee out. I've had 2 fingers chopped off, 1 almost chopped off, back injuries, neck injuries, brain damage, PTSD. Like I said, I would have taken care of myself a lot better. And everybody was crying. Like that's what I remember most. Everybody in my unit was crying because I'd been there the longest. Nobody had even touched close to how long I'd been there. And I mean, I saw some of these kids grow up. You know, 17-year-olds becoming 23-year-olds, and being the person that they go to for everything, like a father. You know, being the uncle, and being the person who was always depended on to make the warehouse work. You know, to this day, I mean, it's 4 or 5 years later, they still call me up and ask me, how do I do this? How do I do this? And very emotional, which is something you don't see with a bunch of military guys often. Lots of hugs going around. Even my commander came up to me and gave me a big hug and said thank you. And, you know, just went on my way. Gave my salute, dropped my hat, and walked away.
What did you do in the days and weeks afterward?
Cried. That's it. Just cried for weeks. I didn't want it. That was my life, and it was gone. There was nothing I could do about it, so I cried.
In an article, I read that when you came back, you had a difficult time sleeping because it was so quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and what was going on?
When you're over there, you get used to the sounds of war. Helicopters going, bombs exploding, people running back and forth just yelling at each other. You know, when you're so used to sleeping with that and then it's gone, you start feeling that something's wrong. You know, like, the best way to explain it is that I've had it told to me, it's like sleeping with somebody for, 30 years, 40 years. You're with this person for so long, and when they're gone and they're not there to hold at night or even just snore next to you and you're used to that, you start to miss it to the point of it affects how you eat, it affects how you sleep, it affects how you think. And when I didn't have that when I got home, it was just, I couldn't live with the peace, I was still there. And, it's really weird to explain because, I've had long-term relationships, I've had all that stuff, but I never missed it when it was gone. But the second that I lost the noise, it's like I lost everything, kind of, and even now, to this day, I gotta sleep with the radio on, I gotta sleep with music playing, something, or else I can't sleep.
Did you go to work or go back to school when you got out?
When I got out, I actually waited for two months and moved up to Boston. And lived in Boston for about 6 months, and my father got sick, so I came home and I'll take care of him. But, I worked boilers for 3 years, and then my body just couldn't do it anymore. I put it through all that it could, and decided to go to school. So I started school in a couple months, actually.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Is your education supported by the GI Bill?
Yes.
Did you make any close friendships while in the service?
Yeah. My best friend, my two best friends, were the tripod. Everywhere that one of us goes, the other two were there. David Stoddard and Charles Wood, who we called Josh. Don't ask why. I'd die for them. I'd do anything for those two. I mean, one of them passed, and you know, I got a tattoo of him. I got a bracelet of him. I keep his picture everywhere, and that's my memory of him. And me and Stoddard, you know, we got plans. You know, once he finishes doing what he does, and I get my degree, we're gonna open up a nightclub in the Philippines and just stay there. And that's it. If tsunami gets us, it gets us.
Where are you gonna go to school?
WestCon for right now. I just to start my normal stuff, and then once I figure out what I want to do, pick a school. So I don't know where yet.
That's great though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you join a veterans organization?
I thought about it, and it was weird because I was everywhere that I went to go and register for like the VFW or the Lions Club or DAV or something like that. There was nobody even remotely close to my age. I mean, it's hard being at the time I was 25. It's hard being a 25-year-old and going to hang out with a bunch of World War II vets and Korea vets, which I didn't mind doing, but you know, they don't understand. What they went through is completely different than what I went through, and I didn't have any close connection to anybody, so I just let it go.
If it's available, I can get it.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Kind of. I mean, when I was growing up, I always wanted to join some form of military. My best friend from high school, he joined right after me because of the same thing. We told each other we're joining the Army together, and that's what we're doing. And he ended up joining the Army and coming to Fort Drum. We went to Iraq and stuff together. And but before, if somebody would badmouth the government or something like that, I didn't care. You know, now I got a problem with it. You know, it's people are pissed off we're in Iraq and they're pissed off we're in Libya and Afghanistan and shit like that. That's fine and understandable. But a lot of people that I talk to who are against that stuff are against all of it. When what they should be doing is, you want to protest the war, but while you're protesting it, why don't you send a care package to those guys over there? You know, and that's the mentality that has changed. You know, it's no longer the U.S. Army. That's my army. You know, that's my guys out there, and you're just gonna badmouth them and not do anything about it. I got a big problem with that, but you know, other than that, my mentality is very, very full of country pride.
Do you attend any reunions or anything like that? Yeah.
I actually have one scheduled for next year. My whole unit that went to Afghanistan and Iraq together are going to get together and hopefully not end up in jail that night. Oh, I'm hoping, trust me. We're going to get together and remember the good times and
Take a cab.
no, we're probably going to stay there. We're getting a hotel thing, so we're probably just going to stay there. And, you know, it'll be really good to see those guys again. Even the ones I didn't like, I'd like to see again.
How do you feel about the war today?
As far as which one? We've got 3.
Like in general?
I've always said that I will always agree with Afghanistan, and then to this day I still do. You know, they attacked us, and now we're there, and we got to help them build themselves up so that they don't do it again. I agree with Afghanistan. Iraq, I have a small problem with, because I don't think we ever should have been there in the first place, but we're there so we do our job. Libya is a bunch of BS, something that we shouldn't even remotely be involved with, but once again, we're there, so we gotta take care of business, and that's it.
How did your service and experiences affect your life?
For a while, I thought that it actually destroyed my life. I wasn't ready to get out, so when I did get out, I mean, I hit the wall bad, and you know, you do stuff to try to forget other things, and not think about it, and now I realize that it made me a lot stronger of a human being than before, because without what I've seen, I wouldn't be able to help out my friends. You know, that a lot of my friends rely on me now because I've been through so much that I'm a pillar for them. You know, before I would have broken down, but now that I've started realizing that everybody's starting to lean on me a little bit for strength, I use my experience in the Army to keep myself strong instead of, you know, just coming up with something to say and tell them to go away like I did when I first got out.
At this time, the interview is coming to a conclusion, so if there's anything else that you'd like to share, please feel free to share it this time.
I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of impressed with that place.
Specialist Charles Brookwood III of Houston, Texas, passed away for this country. My best friend. And I just want to thank him for being there.
No shit.
That's it.
No edging,
Well, thank you, Giovanni, for your time and for your experiences, for sharing your experiences.
see it? You know what, you know how you get people like that?
Thank you so much.
problem.